Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Bad Wolves, Dear Monsters, out October 29th on Better Noise Music. This album has 12 tracks, 45 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are an American metal band. Now, this record has an interesting structure because the first time that I listened to the album, I felt like this was a very broken record, that it had side A and side B, and the two were very different from one another. More melodic in the first side, a lot heavier on the second. The deeper that I got into the album, I realized that perhaps the structure is not as unbalanced as it looks at first glance. There is some heaviness at the beginning of the record. There is also a lot of melody present at the beginning of the album in that first half of the record, but that melody then really sets up the heaviness that comes after, and how the alternated tracks in the second half of the album really gives this record a lot of fluidity, a lot of dynamic mechanisms that makes it more engaging for the listener. It makes the overall experience a little bit more complete. The album finishes as strong as far as the collective is concerned as it started. Once you get into the soundscape, the album is very rich. This album has great sound all around. You can hear all the different elements, you can hear how they come together and create this magnificent presence throughout. These tracks really feel big. They have this sense of having an extended footprint, and I felt like a lot of that really came from the drums, because the drums have a great sound, they have depth, they have this warm nature to them, and they have oomph. So they allow the tracks to feel a little bit bigger, to expand a little bit, and allow them to overall come across slightly more robust, which gives the overall experience of the album one that just really carries the listener forward from song to song with not necessarily having to pause or break and walk away from this record. This record is super engaging all the way through. But then you also have the guitars. The guitars are very dynamic. They really push all the right buttons in order for this album to have mobility, in order for this album to be engaging, in order for this album to be diverse, because I really felt like overall this is a very diverse sounding album. You're not going to get two songs that sound or come across similar back to back. So there's a lot of things for the listener to digest across all 12 tracks. And the guitars make a point of really pushing the listener into different directions, but never really changing the forward motion that the album has. I really love the guitar sound. I love the solo sections throughout this record. Magnificent. Some of the solo sections are absolutely bananas on this album because they increase the playability of the songs, they increase the power and drive that the songs have, and really make the tracks overall feel more memorable. When you look at the sound, when you look at what the drums are doing, when you look at what the guitars are doing, this album is very catchy, is very hooky. There are some pop elements mixed into rock elements, into metal elements on this album. The diversity of the record, the quality of the sound really speaks for itself, and it becomes the driving force of the overall experience. On top of it all, you have DL on vocals. I was floored. I was blown away by his performance, the consistency of his performance, song in and song out. It didn't matter if it was clean vocals, harsh vocals, just absolutely phenomenal. The album really revolves around him. His vocal performance takes center stage. I didn't know if that's what the band wanted, but that's how the album comes across. You really start to become attached to his voice from the first song all the way through. So it doesn't matter if the track loses a little bit of aggression, it doesn't matter if the track loses a little bit of intensity. The vocals are such, they're so natural, they feel so emotionally driven, connecting the lyrics with the soundscape, that you're just gonna go exactly where he's telling you to go, regardless of the sound around them. All around, this is an incredible Bad Wolves album. I was really taken back by not just the quality of the approach, but the overall sound presence, how big these tracks feel, and they didn't have to add a lot of add-on value to it. Just the pure guitar sound, the drums, the combination of two, and then having an incredible vocalist that really knows how to push the experience forward, how to add a little bit more of an emotional drive to these songs, make them a little bit more personal, makes this record stand out in my opinion, and allowed me to stay a little bit more connected with it. This is not just an album that has some hookiness, some catchy chorus here and there. This is an overall really incredibly produced, recorded, and executed record. As far as favorite songs are concerned, On the Case, that's the one that I want to start with. Heaviest track on the album. Everybody always asks me, so what's the heaviest track on the album? This is the heaviest track on the album. It comes right in the middle. It sets the tone for that second half of the record. That's going to be a half that's really going to have a punch. It's going to have a drive. The drums and guitars open up this track incredibly with drive and aggression and intensity. The harsh vocals cement that feeling of heaviness that the song has, and then the clean vocals in the chorus blows the roof off. they really change your perception of the track. They give you a little bit something easier to digest, a little bit something different to process, and makes the song feel more complete, because sound-wise, I really felt like the track had a little bit more of a steady motion from beginning to end. But when you add those clean vocals in the chorus, that motion changes, your perception of the track changes, so it makes the song overall feel more dynamic, feel more engaging with more ups and downs. Next we have Springfield Summer. This is a very interesting track. If there's one song on this album that I wasn't expecting, this is the one. I mean, this is an acoustic country hit with some pop elements. It's actually a song that's made up of 3 different stages. It starts off acoustic, very country-like, musically and vocally. It sounds like a country song. Then in the pre-chorus, it almost feels more like pop country. It has a little bit more of a different aroma, or starts to morph into something else. And then once you get into the chorus, it feels more like a rock song. It shedded a little bit of that country skin and felt more like a straightforward rock metal track. So it's a song that has a sense of evolution. It morphs, it grows, but that country vibe from the beginning, those acoustic guitars, or even the vocals all the way through, really make this a standout track, something that you haven't heard up until that point, and you're never gonna hear it from that point afterwards. A really different song that stands out in the crowd out of all of the other magnificent tracks that this album has, because of that country vibe that it offers and how much it depended on the acoustic guitars. Last but not least, House of Cards, another heavy track in that second half of the album. It has a killer intro. It allows the song to feel not just heavy, but also feel a little bit dark. And that is something that I felt throughout this whole album. I felt like there was a little bit of an underbelly of darkness, of melancholic, that pushed a little bit of the nuances of these tracks, that had an impact on the lyrics and on the vocal performance. And in this song, perhaps it becomes a little bit more noticeable than in other songs. Maybe it's the heaviness that the track has, the alternation of melody and heaviness, how those two intertwine with one another. That underlying darkness becomes a little bit more noticeable. It jumps a little bit more into the forefront. The contrast between the sound and the vocals, it's what drives this song. This is a heavy song musically, but vocally, with the clean vocals on top of it, it really creates a yin and yang all the way through. That dynamic barely changes, so it becomes very consistent from that perspective. And I didn't think that the clean vocals all the way through with the heaviness behind them would really work, but it does. It elevates the track. This song feels like it's always off the rails. It never feels like it's brought down. It doesn't matter how heavy it gets. It doesn't matter what the drums do, bass or guitars. The song always feels like it's levitating. And I really felt that because of the clean vocals on top of that heaviness, has a sense of pushing the song not just forward, but upwards as well. This is it. Bad Wolves, Dear Monsters, out October 29th on Better Noise Music. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.